G'day everyone, welcome back to the vlog. Happy Year of the Rat to everyone out there. It is Lunar New Year. Crown has gone all out with the decorations, as you can see. But that's not what we're worried about with this vlog. We're worried about the Aussie Millions 2020 challenge, and I've got some good news. We have 145 hours locked up in the challenge, so all things going well. Today should be the last session where we actually complete the challenge and get it all done with 3 days to spare. It's actually the 28th here. So that's the good news. Unfortunately, we do have a bit of bad news as well, and it's to do with the downswing. Since the last vlog I made, where I actually went on a bit of a sun run during that session, it's been 7 days. I've played poker every single day since then, and I've actually booked a loss every single session since then, unfortunately, which I think is the longest losing streak I've gone on probably ever since I started playing. Just 7 days straight in a row, all losses. So yeah, mentally I think I am making a lot of mistakes due to fatigue, burnout, obviously playing a lot of poker, going for those 150 hours, playing the main event. It's just a lot to deal with. So not only is there just mental fatigue and burnout, there's also emotional stress that comes with the situation of just coming into the casino every day and losing every day. It's not something I'm used to, but it is part of the game, and I think I really need to just play my A-grade game today if I do want to book a winning session. Hopefully I do run a bit better too. Obviously I have been making mistakes which contributed to the long streak of losses, but run bad contributed as well. So let's see if we can turn things around today. Let's get into it. Okay, so we've put our name on the waiting list, and there's been one interesting development today. The 5-5 game that Crown used to run all the time actually got up today. It's pretty interesting because I actually thought the game was dead and that they only let us play 2-5 and 5-10, and the 5-5 in between game was knocked out, but apparently not, because it's open today. So actually pretty keen to hop into that game, so we'll see how we go. So we are wrapping up the session for the evening. Ended up playing 5-5 exclusively throughout the session, and I am very happy to say that we played 5 hours exactly, bringing us up to our total goal for the Aussie Millions challenge of 150 hours. We did it, 150 hours of grinding through the month of January. Thanks so much for supporting me through it, watching the vlogs, giving me encouragement, greatly appreciated. We hit that goal out of the park. We did play plenty of interesting hands during the course of this session, so we're going to go over those in just a minute. But I think after such a hard-working month, I'm going to treat myself with a bit of a drink. G'day there everyone. It is currently 10 AM on the Wednesday morning after we wrapped up the Aussie Millions challenge last night, playing the 5-5 session with a bit of 5-5-10 mixed in there too towards the end. We played plenty of interesting hands, so let's just get right into it. For the first hand, I have King Queen of Hearts in the hijack. I go ahead and make it 15. The action gets to the cutoff, who is a player I do not recognise, and he goes ahead and 3-bets to 25. So the literal min click 3-bet. Then the action gets to a type passive player in the big blind who decides to call. So the action's back on me with King Queen suited. I think obviously never going to fold, getting such a good price. I think calling is the standard option, but there's also a lot of merit to 4-betting for a squeeze here. It's going to be hard for the cutoff to have a strong hand, deciding to just min click raise, but obviously calling, getting such a good price is a good move as well. That's what I decided to do. Kind of wish I thought about 4-bet squeezing more. I think this might be a good spot for that, but regardless, I just call. Then we go 3 ways to a flop. And the flop is Queen 9-4 with 2 diamonds. The big blind checks. I go ahead and check it to the pre-flop aggressor. He goes ahead and c-bets 40. Then the big blind folds. I think I have a pretty easy decision to just call here with my king queen. That's what I do. And then we see a turn, and it is the jack of hearts. Not a very good turn for me. I go ahead and check it to the aggressor, and he actually decides to check back. So feeling pretty confident. I have the best hand here. So when the river is the 4 of spades, I decide to bet for a bit of value. I go ahead and make it 100, and then my opponent tanks for a few seconds before folding. So running pretty good and winning the first hand in the session. Alright, next hand there is a low jack limp from a loose passive player. Then I am in the hijack with jack 10 of diamonds. I go ahead and make it 25. Then the cutoff, who is a loose aggressive opponent I've played with before, he goes ahead and 3-bets to 75. The low jack folds, and then I think I have a pretty easy decision to call with the jack 10 here. I do think, again, there is some merit to 4-betting, particularly against a loose aggressive opponent, but obviously calling the standard move, nothing wrong with that. So I throw in the call, then we go heads up to a flop, which is ace 10 3 rainbow. I go ahead and check it to the 3-better, then he goes ahead and c-bets 45. Obviously a pretty small bet, which, getting such a good price, I think I have a very easy call here with the jack 10. That's what I do. And then we do get to see a turn, which is the 6 of diamonds. So it's a pretty good turn for us because we do turn a flush draw now. I go ahead and check it to the aggressor again, and he decides to check back. So we do get a free look at the river, and the river is the Queen of Hearts. Not really the best river for me. If my opponent did 3-bet with a hand like King Queen suited, maybe even King Queen offsuit, then obviously they've moved ahead now. So I don't think there's too much value to be had by betting here. So I just check it to him, and then he's in the tank for a few seconds before betting out 140. Not really liking the way things are developing. Like I said, I think my opponent can have plenty of queens in their range, which I think they're definitely going to bet for thin value here. Or if they did play pot control on the turn with a hand like ace 5, something like that, obviously we're still behind that. So very concerned that we're beat here, and I do actually decide to fold here. I think if I played the hand again, I would put more thought into potentially check raising as a bluff here to try and get him off. If he is betting with a hand as thin as King Queen, I think I can put a lot of pressure on his thin value bets by check raising here as a bluff, try and represent King Jack or Ace Queen, something like that. Those are definitely hands I can have in my range, but I do decide to take the more conservative option and just fold. Okay, so next hand, a tight aggressive player makes it 15 under the gun. Both the low jack and hijack call. The actions on me in the cutoff, I have Queen 10 of diamonds. I decide to just call. I'll say this for the 3rd hand in a row. I think this might be a good spot to squeeze pre-flop, but obviously calling a standard and fine option also. That's what I do. And then the big blind calls as well. So we go 5 ways to a flop, and the flop is 10-8-3 rainbow. The action checks to the pre-flop aggressor. He decides to c-bet 40. Then low jack folds, the hijack calls a bet, and the actions on me with my Queen 10, I think I have another very easy call yet again. That's what I do, throw in the call, then the big blind folds, so we do get to see a turn, 3 ways. The turn is the ace of diamonds, so a pretty good turn for us. We do turn a flush draw, but also we do not have top pair anymore, obviously. Then the under the gun raiser, he actually checks now. The action's on the hijack, and he decides to bet 60. Obviously a pretty small bet, and obviously with our pair and flush draw, we're going to call this bet getting such a good price. We have outs to hit a flush even if one of my opponents does have an ace, and it's also somewhat possible that my 10 is good here, even though I do think it's unlikely. Obviously not folding, getting such a good price. I throw in the call, then the under the gun player calls as well. So we're still 3 ways to the river. The river's a banger. It is the 10 of clubs. The under the gun player checks it, and then the hijack stops betting. He actually checks it again. The action's on me here, and I think I do have a pretty interesting decision with what size I want to value bet here. I go ahead and make it 200. I think this is a mistake though. I think I should be sizing down a bit. If the hijack did turn an ace and he was betting that for value, he's probably going to be pretty inclined to fold to this size of a bet. Obviously I have a lot of 10s in my range the way the hand played out, and he's going to be concerned about that with an ace, so I think I should be sizing down to give an ace a good price to call. But I was worrying about the hijack. The under the gun player, the action's on him, and he goes into the tank for probably a good 60 seconds before eventually folding, and then the hijack folds as well. So we do rake in that pot, despite me feeling like I made a bit of a mistake on my river bet sizing. Next hand, a very loose aggressive player opens a cutoff for 25. Then I'm on the button with ace-10 of hearts. I decide to just call here, and unlike every other hand I've gone over in the vlog so far, I actually don't think this is a good spot to 3-bet pre-flop, just because against a very loose aggressive opponent, ace-10 suited is very likely to be ahead of their range, but if we do start trying to push that by 3-betting for value, they're so aggressive they might start 4-betting me a lot, and then that just leaves me with an absolute headache of a spot with ace-10 suited. So I think calling on the button to play in position is absolutely the slam dunk right play to make in this spot. It's what I do. We do end up heads up with the cutoff to a flop, and the flop is queen 8-7 with 1 heart, rainbow board. Then the cutoff c-bets 25. I think I have a very easy decision to call here with my showdown value. I backdoor straights, I backdoor flush draws. It's going to be a lot of good turns for me, so I call. Then we get to see a turn. The turn is absolutely beautiful. It is the 9 of hearts. So we make the backdoor nut flush draw, and we also have a open-ended straight draw to go with it. And then the cutoff, he keeps betting. He goes ahead and makes it 75. The action's on me here, and I think this would be a fine spot to either call or raise. It's still somewhat possible ace high is the best hand against such a loose aggressive opponent, but I choose to raise. I go ahead and make it 250. I think I like raising a bit more here, just because my opponent is very aggressive. I think it's very likely that they could even be bluffing with a hand like pocket sixes, and obviously we lose to pocket sixes with ace high, but that hand is never going to call or raise if he is betting that wide. So I go ahead and raise it up, and then my opponent folds. So cool. That was a hand that I really like how I played it, and we rake in the pot as a result. So for the rest of the session, we actually got the straddle going with every hand, so the game becomes 5-5-10, but unfortunately I am much less proud of how I played this next hand as opposed to the last one. So a vlog watcher in the low jack, shout outs to you, they raise to 20, then the big blind calls, and I'm in the straddle with 8-3 offsuit. Look, when someone min raises your straddle, you're going to want to call with a lot of hands because you're getting such a good price to play. I think 8-3 offsuit, probably just a bit too loose to be defending, but you know what, effort. We're here to play poker. I throw in the call, then we end up 3 ways to a flop. The flop is 8-6-3. That's a banger. The big blind checks, I check it to the pre-flop aggressor. He goes ahead and c-bets 45. The big blind folds here. Obviously, we absolutely luck boxed a 2-pair hand after calling with an awful hand pre-flop. So we're going to try and make the best of it and check raise for value. I go ahead and bet 180, and then the low jack calls. So we end up heads up to a turn, and the turn is the 6 of hearts, bringing in the backdoor flush draw. I still have the betting lead, so I'm going to continue to bet my 2-pair for value, try and get stacks in with my opponent. I think if they have an overpair, I can try and get stacks in against that. Also, obviously, some straight draws on the board. So I go ahead and bet 300, then my opponent's in the tank for probably about 30 seconds before ripping it all in for 800. Obviously going to call with my 2-pair here. I throw in the call. My opponent shows 6-5 of clubs, so they did turn 2-pair. After flopping a pair on the flop, they turned 2-pair when they call. Obviously going to be no good against my hand. The river is the 9 of hearts, so despite playing pretty poorly pre-flop, in my opinion, we luck box the win and we rake in that pot. So next hand, there are 2 limpers. Then I'm in the small blind with the best hand in all of poker, pocket aces. I go ahead and raise it up to 60, which, by the way, smaller side. I think that sizing's a bit too small. Should be sizing it up more. Regardless, I go ahead and make it 60, and then the limper in the low jack and the limper in the cutoff call. So we go 3 ways to a flop, and the flop is Queen Jack 8 rainbow. The action's on me here, and I actually decide to check with my overpair here, but I think by checking I can actually induce a bet from a worst hand by my opponents if they want to bet a queen for value, or if they want to bluff with some type of hand. I think betting allows them to do that, so I go ahead and check. Sorry, checking allows them to do that rather, and then they both check back. So we get a free turn, and the turn is the 7 of diamonds, bringing out the backdoor flush draw. The action's on me here, and I think I do want to start to bet for value. Obviously, there is a bunch of gut shots out there I can get value from. If my opponents check back check to queen on the flop. They're definitely going to call a bet here. So I go ahead and make a 100. Then the action's on the low jack, and he actually raises to 225. The cutoff folds. The action's back on me here, and already not liking this situation. My opponent could definitely have turn 2 pair with 8-7 suited, or they could have just limp called with pocket 7s pre-flop, and I think it's somewhat possible they might check a straight or a 2 pair on the flop. Pretty unlikely though. I think those hands are mostly going to bet, but regardless, obviously not loving the situation, but obviously also not folding, getting such a good price here with my aces. I throw in the call, and then we do get to see a river, and the river is the 4 of hearts, so a pretty big brick. I go ahead and check it to the low jack, and then he thinks about it for a couple of seconds before going ahead and betting 450. Ugh. Obviously a pretty gross spot for me with aces. Like I said, we lose to 8-7, we lose to pocket 7s, or if my opponent is bluffing here, I think they would have had to have turned a pair into a bluff, which is somewhat possible, but pretty unlikely, so I actually just decide to go ahead and fold my pocket aces there. Obviously a bit more of a conservative option, but let me know what you think of that fold in the comments below. So those were pretty much the most interesting hands we played over the session. Like we already went over earlier, we played exactly 5 hours, which closed out the 150 hours for the month of January. So obviously stoked, completed the Aussie Millions challenge. So ended up buying into the game for 1,100 and cashing out for 1,892. So after coming to the casino 7 days in a row and losing, we do finally turn it around and book a win. And to be 100% honest with you guys, emotionally, that felt pretty great to know that I'm not just coming in and losing every single day. When you do go on those big downswings, you do sort of lose a bit of confidence. It's sort of hard to play well, and we'll get to the gameplay grade in a minute. I still don't think I'm 100% back on track, but it does feel very good to finally book a win and know that I can do it. So here's a moment of truth. The gameplay grade for today, and obviously it's going to be a bit low considering all those mistakes we made in those hands. I'm going to give myself a C for the session. The mistakes I made, the most obvious one is playing a hand as trash as 8-3 offsuit. I would not recommend any of you guys do that, no matter how good the odds are, calling in the big blind. And then obviously I was a bit more passive in some of the earlier hands, like when I did not bluff with the Jack 10. I think that was a good spot to go for it. I just decided not to. Some of those pre-flop spots I can go either way between calling or raising, but I think the fact that I took the more passive option each time is sort of more indicative of, you know, just going in with all the mental tilt of being on a downswing, losing 7 sessions in a row. It's just like I was sort of just like more inclined to take the passive option. And it's not because of like a good strategic reason, it's because of the tilt of being losing. I just wanted to book up a win by playing more conservative, and obviously being conservative can be good in poker, but it shouldn't just be the default move. So I do recognise that that was a mistake that I made throughout the session, and hopefully we can work on that going forward, but for this session, a C feels about right. That's going to wrap up the vlog for today, guys. That's going to wrap up the Aussie Millions 2020 challenge. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Appreciate all your support. Go ahead and follow me on Instagram. We're going to continue making vlogs now that the Aussie Million 2020 challenge is over. But thanks for staying with me through the whole thing. I appreciate you guys watching. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel too to get all the rest of the vlogs as they come out. But for now, I'm out of here. Peace.